Hey there YouTube. So in this video I wanted to go over with you the tax implications of when a US company hires somebody to work for them remotely outside the US. So this is the US company wants to hire a non-US citizen, right? So they're not a US tax resident and they're going to live and work full-time in a foreign country. What are the issues? So I want to cover sourcing of income under federal tax rules. What are the payroll tax implications when you do this? What are the U.S. visa implications potentially? All right, do you need work visas for these individuals? And then what are the local tax issues in the country where you hire the worker? Do you have a payroll tax or other type of federal or state or local tax filing obligation in that foreign country? So first, to go over the source of income. Sourcing of income of the compensation, right? So under 862A3, foreign source income includes compensation for labor or personal services that are performed outside the United States, okay? So if you hire a worker that lives and works full-time in Germany, the wages paid to that person are foreign source income to that individual. It doesn't matter that the payor of the income, you as the U.S. company, are a U.S. company, right? I mean, logically you might think, well, if it's coming from a U.S. source, right? If I'm paying wages from a U.S. company to a foreign person, that's U.S. source income. That is not the way the standard works under federal tax rules for compensation, okay? It's sourced to where you as the worker are physically present when you're doing the work. Now, just as an example, just to contrast this, the sourcing rules differ for other types of income. So for example, dividend income, interest income, when those types of income are paid from a U.S. company, so if a U.S. company pays dividends to somebody that lives and works full-time in Germany, that is U.S. source income because it's coming from a U.S. company. We don't look to the recipient to determine source. So that's the variation with those types of income and other types of income that you'll see coming from U.S. sources. So just to recap, compensation for personal services, wages, right, whether you're an employee or an independent contractor, is sourced to where you are physically present when you're doing the task, okay? So if you're in Germany, it's foreign source income. Now, what about the payroll tax issue? So payroll taxes in the U.S., we have Social Security, we have Medicare. Social Security is 6.2%, Medicare is 1.45%, and then the employer has to match that, right? So employee has their cut come out of their paycheck, and then the employer has to match that and send all that to the IRS. Now, under section 3402A1, an employer that pays wages, right, is required under the federal tax code to deduct and withhold those payroll taxes from the wages, okay? So that's the base rule. If you're a U.S. employer, you have an employee, and you're paying wages to an employee, you've got to deduct the payroll taxes. That's the standard. Now, if we drill down into the rules a bit more, we can see one exception to this. So 3401A6 says that wages, for purposes of that code section, do not include remuneration paid for services performed by a non-resident alien. Okay, so that's the key point there. Non-resident alien. If you are paying wages to somebody who is a non-resident alien, that does not count as income that needs to be withheld upon for federal payroll taxes. So you can hire a non-resident alien individual that lives in Germany, lives in Australia, wherever. They can't be a dual citizen. If they're a U.S. citizen and a German citizen, changes the analysis completely. We're talking about somebody that is not a U.S. tax resident at all, and they're not working in the U.S. If that's the person that's your employee, you can pay them without having to worry about taking payroll taxes out of their wages or having to match the payroll taxes on their wages, okay? They're an exempt employee. Now, what about the potential tax issues in the country where the worker is physically located? This is a whole nother ballgame, okay? So we might have avoided all the U.S. payroll tax issues, but you could trip over payroll tax rules, income tax rules in the country where you have a full-time employee. So again, these U.S. tax rules help you get out of all these U.S. tax issues, but what kind of exposure have you created in that other country? If you have an employee full-time in Germany, the German tax authorities are likely going to say, well, you're doing business in our country, you need to be registered here, you need to have a payroll set up here, you need to worry about social insurance here for that employee. So if you're hiring remote workers that are living full-time in another country, you need to get local counsel in that country to help you kind of navigate what are the issues there locally. Okay? Again, you might have circumvented or avoided the U.S. issues, but you've inherited completely separate issues in that other foreign country. Now, lastly, the work visa issues. So a lot of people hear this and they say, well, what about the work visa? I need a visa for this person to work for my company, right? No. The Department of Labor regulates the space, and when you look at visas, the visas are issued to persons that are actually wanting to physically move to the U.S. to work for the company. That's the key sticking point here. If you have somebody that you're hiring that's not coming to the U.S. at all, so they're not coming to live and work, they're not traveling on a temporary basis, if they're completely living outside the U.S. and working, you don't need a visa for that person. Now, if they want to split their time between the foreign country and the U.S. one, then you might need to explore maybe an H-1B visa or something like that. But if they're going to be living and working full-time outside the U.S., you do not need a work visa for that person. Okay, so that covers all the points I wanted to address. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Happy to answer those. And of course, always appreciate a like on the video. And please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.